Could we be at the beginning stages of a currency reset? Quite possible, but one billionaire thinks that what we're doing right now could lead to a currency collapse. This is big news from a very influential name in the world of business. Let's talk about it and why gold and silver are so important during these times as we explore. Billionaire Ray Dalio is a name you probably have heard. In fact, I've done several videos discussing what Ray Dalio's thoughts are. He's a founder of Bridgewater Associates, and this is quite a fascinating statement that he mentioned of his worries about something worse than just a recession. Bridgewater founder Ray Dalio said that he is worried about the turmoil resulting from Trump's tariffs and economic policies that will threaten the global economy. Right now, we are at a decision-making point and are very close to a recession, Dalio said on NBC News Meet the Press, and I'm worried about something worse than a recession if this is not handled well. Now, right now, so far, that doesn't sound like much thing different than you would hear on NBC News, that's for sure. We know their leanings politically. But there's something that he said after this that I think is quite compelling. The hedge fund billionaire said he's more concerned about trade disruptions, mounting U.S. debt, and emerging world powers bringing down the international economic and geopolitical structure that has been in place since the end of World War II. Yeah. So he's mentioning something that has been a bipartisan problem, the U.S. debt, and it really is a big issue here for sure. And this is the hedge fund billionaire said he's more concerned about these trade disruptions and what we've been seeing happen here, but we're going from multilateralism, which is largely an American world order type of thing, to a unilateral world order in which there's a great conflict, he said. Now that sounds almost conspiratorial. We've all heard about the New World Order, although we don't hear much about that kind of phrasing anymore. Now it's just globalism, and it's pretty unfront, especially with what they've been saying at the World Economic Forum. But it is pretty intriguing what he's saying here. Let's listen to a bit of a piece from his Meet the Press interview here that kind of puts everything into perspective.
Right now, we are at a decision-making point and very close to a recession. And I'm worried about something worse than a recession if this isn't handled well. A recession is 2 negative quarters of GDP, and whether it goes slightly there, we always have those things. We have something that's much more profound. We have a breaking down of the monetary order. We are going to change the monetary order because we cannot spend the amounts of money, so we have that problem. And when we talk about the dollar and we talk about tariffs, we have that. We are having profound changes in our domestic order, how ruling is existing, and we're having profound changes in the world order. Such times are very much like the 1930s. I've studied history, and this repeats over and over again. So if you take tariffs, if you take debt, if you take the rising power challenging the existing power, if you take those factors and look at the factors, those changes in the orders, the systems, are very, very disruptive.
Very disruptive, he says. But you know what? The current administration's head is Donald Trump, and he's known as a disruptor. And for many of us, we don't feel that's a bad thing. But it's how he plays his cards as to whether or not this will play out or not. You know, most of us are probably not for tariffs in and of themselves, or at least the practice of them, in theory, because it's really another tax. But nonetheless, it's about leveling the playing field. And in a sense, very well, what Dalio is saying here very well could be the beginning of something that Trump is purposely looking forward to. And according to some statements from Secretary Bessent, that very well may be the possibility, especially when we talk about revaluing the gold and the like. And who knows, revaluing the gold very well could mean a change in the monetary system and the monetary order. You know, he feels the dollar very well could come under threat. Trump has mentioned in this past administration, and even now, I think he's probably for a weaker dollar in a sense. And some of that very well could play out in order to get some of these trade imbalances and in terms of what is being charged by tariffs and to bring everything in order. Right now, it is a little bit chaotic for sure. But you know what's not chaotic? Gold and silver. No question about that. They are stable. They are steady. And yes, I say that even as their price fluctuates at this moment in time, but it's based off of markets made by man and under systems created in countries that have a very short lifespan in the grand scheme of the history of gold and silver. Of course, you and I, we can be our own central banks. We can hold silver and gold outside of any banking institution by buying from a bullion company that you trust. I would ask you to consider Summit Metals as you shop around for precious metals out there. Have a very competitive prices, so check out summitmetals.com. But gold and silver, they have no agenda. They don't care about monetary resets because they have been money for thousands of years, recognized by both the U.S. Constitution, which is the oldest of its kind, still in practice today in the world, and the Bible, with over 400 mentions of both gold and silver therein. And of course, in that time, we know that gold and silver has been used in transactions back in that day. So it's very interesting what he's saying here. He said these 5 forces that drive the economy: internal political conflict, the international order, technology, and the acts of nature, such as floods and pandemics. And he's saying that Trump's tariffs have understandable goals, but they are being implemented in a very disruptive way that creates global conflict. But you know what? Some of that disruption very well could be planned, although I think it is a little risky, honestly, because the markets are nervous. I'm nervous about them, and I'm a Trump supporter. The president's rapidly changing tariff policies have upended international trade, and he announced a 90-day pause on his reciprocal tariffs just last week. But he stood firm on a 10% baseline duties and 145% reciprocal tariffs in China. You know, if you look at the art of the deal, of course, even in some basic negotiating tactics, you know, you ask for something extreme, and in reality, what you're looking for is something more reasonable to bring people back down to that. And maybe the 10% was what he's been looking for all along. He wants to bring other countries there as well. So a little bit of chaos in between is something that is going to ruffle the feathers of many nations for sure, and of course also ruffle the feathers of analysts and even the billionaire Ray Dalio. So it's interesting. And of course he says here that we need a win-win trade with China that would appreciate the yuan against the dollar. He also called for both countries to address their growing debts. And indeed, we need to. We're only half-heartedly doing it right now. In fact, the only thing that's really working against the debt and deficit spending is the Doge efforts right now, none of which have been codified yet into law. And even the Republican spending bill has more spending in it. There's no cuts in the amount of dollars that are asked for in this legislation, which really has me scratching my head. But nonetheless, maybe there's some negotiating tools with that as well. I don't know. Maybe they want an extra padding so that they can meet these budgets and make these cuts, so that when next time, when the debt ceiling is asked for, they won't need to ask for that debt ceiling increase. Who knows? Hopefully there's something involved in some of this negotiation to make that work out. But nonetheless, we do have a debt problem. Gold and silver, they are not debt instruments like these currencies are, of which the precious metals you see here are sitting. No, they are stable. These currencies, they decline in value. In fact, from the time I started this video to the time it ends, they've lost a little bit of value, slightly, if you follow along a streamlined curve, tracking it minute by minute. They lose value. It's crazy. But gold and silver, they maintain their value. And the reason why they're so important is even though the price fluctuates, it is based off of a system of which can never be suppressed totally, because they, when measured against the performance of these currencies, gold and silver, in the long run, maintain a stability that is provable in the data. You cannot see that with currencies. They lose value. Gold and silver maintain value. And the beautiful thing about them, when you think about the long-term proposition of gold and silver, is that they do not make you rich. They preserve the riches you already have by holding them in your hand and storing them safely on your person or in a secure location from which you can have access. That's what it's all about, folks. It's about wealth preservation. You don't get that with currencies. Do we need a monetary reset? Heck yes, we do. And it'd be nice to have a monetary reset that is founded upon precious metals, gold and silver. We used to have a gold standard in this country. States in the United States have begun working their way towards recognizing gold and silver as sound money. Multiple states have done that. I just did a video recently about one in Alabama making that move to recognize gold and silver, or reaffirm, based off of Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, gold and silver, indeed, are sound money. Yes, indeed, and that's what it's about. So very interesting report here of what Ray Dalio says. I don't think it's completely wrong. This is a nervous time, and he's nervous. For me, since I have gold and silver, yeah, I may be a little bit nervous about what's going on, but you know what? When you have gold and silver, you sleep a whole lot better at night because they will never go away and they will never lose value. These currencies will eventually die off, but nonetheless, gold and silver shall live on. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.